Hey YouTube, this is my top 100 plus 9 most interesting cards. Now these are not necessarily the best or most powerful. These are the most interesting, and that's most interesting by my opinion. You don't have to agree, and if you don't agree, hey, post it. I mean, I won't probably ultimately care, and I won't change my opinion probably, but you're welcome to post it and let your voice be heard. I had to do the extra 9 honorable mentions just because they're cool enough. I'll talk about each card and we'll count down all the way from 109 to 1. This video right here is the honorable mentions 109 to 101, and then it's 100 through to 71. So, and the other 2 videos will cover the rest. So let's go ahead and get started. Ranking in at number 109 is Jinzo. He just had such an impact on the game. Even though his effect is static and he's been around forever, he's still very interesting in the fact that he shuts everything down. Not only does he negate their effects, he says they can't even be activated, which is an effect which is rarely paralleled or copied in any way. Plus he's 2400, which used to be kind of the golden standard of size. So that's why he gets honorable mention. 108 is going to be Gale. Basically he made the list because, well, number one, he probably shouldn't exist because he's just a little too broke. He self-special summons in a deck that really enjoys the power bonus, and he gives a permanent halving effect to somebody, effectively making his attack strength 2600. Plus, he's a 3-star tuner, which is quite good. And he's dark. I mean, he's everything. So, quite interesting there. 107, DD Crow. He revolutionized the game. He's a card that activates from the hand, so you don't have to waste time setting. You can activate him even if you haven't had a turn yet. And removing things from the grave is an incredibly powerful effect, because sending things to the grave is a powerful effect. 106, Crush Card Virus. The lingering 3-turn effect is quite interesting, and it inspired a whole series of viruses. Deck Dev, Eradicator Epidemic, and Planet Pollutant so far. So quite interesting, plus the fact that it was the rich get richer card for a long time because it was Jump competition prize card, not just a Jump magazine promo. Lots of reason that's an interesting card. Next is Chaos Goddess, just because she's one of those marvelous cards that, okay, number one, she's got really awesome art. If you want higher graphics resolution, go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki. She's so hard to get out, and even then she still charges you a price for her effect. That said, her effect is pretty awesome. So for these reasons, she makes it count. Next up, 5-Headed Dragon. Mainly because he's just got the most absurd effect and the most absurd seeming conditions. 5 monsters diffused to summon him sounds ridiculous. But he's actually pretty easy to summon because we do have access to Future Fusion and then Dragon's Mirror, so he's actually fairly easy to summon. But the fact that a 5,000 point monster can't be destroyed in combat except by a light monster is a ridiculous condition. It's so pointless that it's laughable, and that's what makes it intriguing. But in addition to that, ironically, the most likely thing to kill him these days, long after his original printing, is a light monster, because they can honest and wipe him out. So, I guess that's irony for you. Next is a card that gets an honorable mention, Toon World. While not inherently interesting itself, the fact that the entire archetype pretty much of Toons relies on this one card, and it makes them so fragile, and it's the very reason that they are so weak. And it's a compelling card from the show. It's so interesting. Well, to me. And next up, ranking in at 102, a very powerful card, Pot of Duality. It's intriguing, not because its effect is necessarily that complex, but it's the fact that you look at 3 cards and then pick one to add to your hand. That's just, it's so good. I mean, it sounds like pigeonholing Books of Spell, but it's a little bit more than that. And the condition of no special summon is actually much more restricting than a lot of people give credit, yet they still run it, because it's a hype card right now. Probably a little overvalued at the current time, but who knows. Predictions, it's going to go down. This video was made, by the way, right before Starstrike Blast came out. So anyway, that's why I made the list. And number 101 basically made the list because, as an honorable mention, because it inspires so many other cool combos, and that's DNA Surgery. Shifting around monster types enables all kinds of things, not the least of which is interactions with machine duplication, allowing all kinds of cool tricks like maybe 3 Phantom of Chaos. But anyway, those are the honorable mentions, and now we will get to our actual countdown, which hopefully is going to go a little bit faster. Ranking in at lonely number 100 is Return Zombie. basically because he has one of the arguably worst effects in the game, and he wasn't even that easy to get. He was secret rare only in the pack. Yeah, he's terrible, and he charges you. I mean, really, guys, no cards right after my draw phase, and you're going to charge me life points to get him back? Okay, if there were a spell speed 2 effect that enabled me any time, as often as I wanted during my turn, to pitch him from my hand for some kind of an effect, okay, maybe, because then I could spam him like Treeborn Frog. But even then, there don't really seem to be that many great effects like that, at least not for now. Plus, he charges me life points, so I couldn't go infinite, really. Next up is Book of Moon. It's had a tremendous influence on the game, got limited for a long time because of its interaction with the whole Scapegoat deck from way back when. And the fact that it's a -1 that still has so much power and got twice, maybe even 10 times more powerful just because of how it messes up people's attempts to synchro. So, anyway, that's why it makes the list. Pot of Greed ranks in at number 98. A simple +1, a card that, like Bill from Days of Pokemon, well, okay, granted, we can't fairly compare this to Bill. Okay, now why is that? It's the same effect. Oh wait, we're in a game where card drawing is considerably less dominant than it is in Pokemon. The fact that you just have a free +1 like this that's so easy to abuse, it shouldn't exist. It shouldn't. It was made from the manga. That was pretty much the whole reason it existed. Coming in next at number 97 is Solemn Judgment. It negates anything, and the fact that it can negate a summoning instead of a monster effect is pretty interesting, but it comes at the cost of half your life points. For the longest time when this was at 3, nobody even ran it, despite how very powerful it was. You could have stopped Monarchs in their day with it, and that wouldn't have been too bad. 96. Naturia Bamboo Shoot, because it's a Jinzo and a spell canceller, essentially, and all you have to do is sack a Naturia monster to get it out. And with 2000 attack, it's not necessarily too easily overcome. Pretty sweeping. Number 95 is Blue Eyes White Dragon. He's still pretty much the biggest bad, well, I try to keep my videos clean, so we'll just call him the biggest bad butt that ever was. He's a huge normal monster. He has quite a few cards that specifically interact with him, and gosh darn it, he's so iconic. So, he gets followed by a card with considerably more power, Demok, as in Dark Magician of Chaos. He's just so ridiculously easy to get out and abuse. It's why he makes the list. 2800, he removes things from play in battle, which is just a silly additional effect. And the ability to get back that spell, and then he removes in his whole fusion, Dimension Fusion combo. You don't need me to go on now, do you? Next up is Ice Queen. More interesting because she's Demok's sort of new reprint with 2900 attack. But she's a little more restricted, and in a lot of ways she's the fair version of Demok, what he arguably should have been in the first place. But she's never really been appreciated, maybe because fair cards don't get appreciated, really. Or that is to say, balanced cards don't get as much appreciation. Ranking in next, Ring of Destruction. It's so simple, it's essentially either going to be a -2 for you or a 1 for 1. And it deals equal damage, yet it's so incredibly broken. It's this compelling, seeming oxymoron of effect, I guess you'd say. This contradiction that makes it so very interesting. Next, Night's End Sorcerer. This guy ranks in at number 91, reason being he's a double crow, and he even works in the damage step. And he's a tuner. And he's dark, so he works with everything. Quite a unique card. Number 90, Goyo Guardian. He was so easy to sync, and the reason he made it basically is because he was designed to be a Synchro Monster control card back in the old days, for those of you who played when Teledad was a brand new idea. Because he's conveniently bigger than all the original big Synchros with the exception of Red Dragon Arcfiend. And yet, despite all this, he's actually not that powerful because virtually everything gets a chance to stop him before he actually gets a chance at his effect. Bottomless, D-Prison, I mean, you name it. Next up is Honest. Super powerful. His interest level is that he works with so many things and makes so many other cards good because of himself. Incredibly versatile, even if you feel like he was designed for Lightsworns. He really does a lot more. Plus his bouncing to the hand, and that allows you to say, Monster Reborn him. Pretty versatile card. Next up, Dark Arm Dragon. A card that shaped a format deserves to make the list just for that. Plus, what would seem on the surface, just on basic pen and paper analysis, to be a very difficult summoning condition of exactly 3 dark monsters in your grave, turns out to be very easy. And he's a welcome addition to one of the game's most powerful types. Next up is a Sewer Priest. The ability to attack every monster your opponent has is quite strong. Plus he's light so he can be honested, which is a new interest to him. And he bounces to your hand for safety. Next, Foolish Burial. It's amazing how powerful a -1 can be, isn't it? Ranking in after that, Lone Fire Blossom. Getting any plant would have been a weak thing once upon a time. But this card is exactly the example of what 1 or 2 cards difference can make to making a deck exist. If it weren't for Gigaplant and Titanial and Dandelion, this guy would be almost worthless. And that's what's so weird and yet so very cool about him. And he'll always have applications for the future. Next up, Judgment Dragon. A much more flexible summoning condition than Dark Arm Dragon. Milling 4 cards at the end of the turn in a deck that loves it the most. He's just so many good things stacked together. Ranking in after that, Dimension Fusion. 2,000 life points for what seems like a balanced effect, but creates some of the most powerful sweeping single turns that exist in the game, plus an infinite combo with the aforementioned Dark Magician of Chaos. Next up, ranking in at number 82, for those of you keeping track, Watt Fox. Just an amazing amount of stall. I mean, he just, bam, stuns, and they can do virtually nothing for the rest of the turn, and if they leave him alive, hey, he's a 2-star tuner. Nothing wrong with this guy, and he kind of stands for all the Watts in this countdown, too. Well, most of them, anyway. Ranking in here at number 81 is Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys. The ability to come back and back and back almost endlessly with what used to be a very important score of 2400 and heavy storming every time she does it makes her quite unique. Ranking in at a solid 80 is Barrel Dragon. Used to be this card was the king of the hill, the best 2-tribute monster that existed, especially in a day where you had Monster Reborn, Premature Burial, and Call the Haunted. Very powerful, good attack power, and an effect that cleans the field and doesn't even need face-up monsters. After that, Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the Beginning. So many effects, so easy to summon. Main reason he makes the countdown, why did Konami let this happen? Next is Medium of the Ice Barrier. Her second effect of restricting your opponent from activating more than 1 spell or trap per turn is amazingly paralyzing. It's very powerful. It's almost like a Jinzo spell canceller combined in one. The reason she made it instead of the Great Shogun is because of her ability to self-special summon. After that comes the Creator. This guy's got so much combo potential, it's mind-blowing. And he's got good stats to boot. The only reason he can't come back from the grave, basically, this honest compatible card can't come back from the grave, is because, hey, otherwise you could just go Creator, 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 random monster, and that'd be just a little too easy of a sweep. One of the most compelling cards that's ever been created and has so much fan attention, it's mind-boggling. Obelisk the Tormentor. The legal version, the legal playable version of him, while it might not have the power of the gods on the show, it's still very hard to get out and makes Hardened Arm Dragon a much more attractive card. Ranking in next, Allure of Darkness. It's a draw 2 for any time, but unlike its predecessor Pot of Greed, it comes with a cost. You either remove from play a dark, which can be a challenging decision, but is certainly not a hard condition to meet, or you lose your whole hand to the grave. But that's not necessarily a bad thing either, but that's another topic. Ranking in next is Black Rose Dragon. It's actually got a good secondary effect, and just the simplicity of summoning it and the effect it has on the game and its yo-yoing of bans and limitations, which may continue in the future, all contrive to make it a very interesting card. Ranking in next, Treeborn Frog. Super abusable, but in a way a gambling man's card because of your either no back rows or I hope I can activate this without wasting it. Really interesting card there too. Alright, coming in next at number 72 is Voltic Bicorn. Double mill, but anytime your opponent kills him anyway, it's 7 cards off each deck. He really does tempt you to play some interesting decks. He's quite easy to summon, and of course, hey, he can be honested, but how many things can we say that of? And the last card in this part of the countdown is Battle Fader. Such a novel concept, and he's really shaken up the game. The ability to Waboku or threatening out of the hand where it's almost impossible to stop is very potent indeed, and is likely to affect the game for a long time to come, and he'll probably earn himself a banning or restriction at some point. And that, my friends, is number 71. And tune into the next video for 70 all the way down to 31.